All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
I'm Garret Bergquist, government reporter for Wish TV and the producer of All Indiana Politics. A fight is brewing at the Indiana Republican Party convention over the state's second highest office. By law, convention delegates pick party nominees for lieutenant governor. For the past year, Micah Beckwith has been publicly campaigning for those delegates to endorse him. He's still running despite Mike Braun's endorsement of Julie McGuire for the role. I sat down with Beckwith to discuss why he's still running and why he wants the office of lieutenant governor to play a more active role. Let's bring in Micah Beckwith. Micah, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks, Garret. Appreciate you having me, and it's good to be with you.
So you've been running for lieutenant governor for about a year now. Were you surprised that Mike Braun endorsed someone else for this job?
No, we had suspected that whoever won the nomination was going to typically go the status quo route. And it's just how we've done it for 30 years, is that the nominee tells the delegates who to vote for, and so we were ready for that battle. But I do think we're forcing the question of who does this office belong to? Does it belong to the governor, or does it belong to the people? And so it's a good conversation that we're having all around the state now.
Tell me about your efforts to bring delegates on board.
We were very successful in getting new people engaged in the process. We've got quite a few delegates that ran and won to get in there and support us at the convention. And so it's all in all, I've just been really encouraged that the people who are getting involved. I love to see people taking ownership of the process, of this their state, and it's ours. The people. It's the people's republic, and we have to. We have to make sure that we steward it well, and that's what the republic is all about. And so I've been really encouraged and excited to see all the different faces and new faces getting into the process. So,
how would you rate your chances at the convention next month?
I feel very positive going into it. I think it's very much it's an uphill battle. It always has been. We knew that. We're fighting the establishment machine, and it's really kind of turning into the battle of me, the outsider, versus the establishment. But that's okay. I think it's an uphill battle, but I feel we've got a great shot going into the convention on June 15th.
Why did you decide to campaign publicly for lieutenant governor rather than governor?
Well, two reasons. One, I believe that we've got to get the lieutenant governor office back into the hands of the people. I think it was a check and balance that we were supposed to have for many years. We gave it over to the governor just to say, hey, it really has become a secretarial kind of role in the executive branch. It's really not that way. It's supposed to be the people's office. It's the second representation that we have in the executive branch, and so I wanted to force that conversation, which we've done. I also believe I'm very well qualified for that job. I'm not just running for lieutenant governor just because. As the Secretary of Agriculture, I have an agriculture background. As a business owner, I could really help in OCRA, the Office of Community and Rural Affairs, to bring economic prosperity to small Indiana towns. I'm very equipped for that role specifically. So I think it's really on all fronts. It's a principle of the matter, but it's also, hey, I could serve very, very well and effectively for the people of Indiana in that role.
You talk of returning the office to the people. Should the lieutenant governor be a directly elected office separate from the governor like it is in some states?
No, I'm not advocating for that necessarily. But if we give the people, the delegates, the right to nominate, then I think it's right to always have a competition. I think it's right to say, hey, delegates, you get a choice. For the last 30 plus years, we've always said to the delegates, it's your vote, but you have to vote the way we tell you to vote. And I just don't think that's being honest. I think that's not very genuine. And so I think if the delegates are going to have the right to nominate to form the ticket, then we've got to give them a choice. And I hope, years after I'm gone, I hope this is how we do it. I hope there's a robust competition for the lieutenant governor's office every convention, and I think it'll play out to benefit the people if we can go down that path.
When you and I talked about a year ago, you said this was about influencing the process. How would you approach this job overall?
Well, one, to be an influencer. I mean, to influence the process. The lieutenant governor has a platform, and I think one of the things God's given me the ability to do is use platforms to influence people to say, hey, this is right, this is wrong. Let's make sure that we're going down the path of what's right. And I have a good gifting, I would say, to be a solid influencer. I'd want to partner with the governor. So Mike Braun would be the Republican nominee. Hopefully, the governor come November, he'll win. And I look forward to working with him on his agenda, to where if he creates a solid conservative agenda, which I believe he will, then I can go out and champion that to the people, to take that to all around the state, saying here's the conservative values that we uphold as Republicans, and we need to make sure that we sell it to the people, because if the people don't buy into it, then it's not going to go far. And one thing I can do is help be a mouthpiece and a champion of that agenda. So I look forward to doing that.
The Lieutenant Governor chairs the Board of Directors for the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority. Now, that agency's purview includes rental assistance and homeownership programs, among other things. How would you approach that role as it pertains to Indiana's housing crisis? Yeah,
I think the housing crisis right now all around the state it's because we're seeing buyouts by big corporate conglomerates coming in. They're not part of Hoosier communities. They're not part of Hoosier values. It's outside entities buying up all of the homes, and we see the home values are going up. I would say it's an overinflated market right now, where we have prices going through the roof. Property taxes are soaring. One of the things I would work with the legislature to help with just the housing crisis in general is getting property taxes under control. I mean, the fact that we as Republicans have not done anything to take the burden off of Hoosiers when it comes to higher taxes, specifically the older generation, 65 and older. Some of them have paid off their homes, but yet they're being threatened with eviction because they can't pay the government taxes to stay on their own property. I mean, that's not right. And as Republicans, we need to work to change that. So being a part of that whole housing board, I would really push for let's make it more feasible and viable for just your everyday Hoosiers to be able to own homes. We're seeing that we're getting pushed out of the market, and we've got to do something to stop that, so that we can. I mean, owning a home is an American dream, and we've got to protect that here in Indiana.
Would you continue Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch's work on mental health and disability advocacy?
Absolutely. She's done a great job with that. I love Suzanne's heart for those who are struggling with mental illness. Mental illness is a huge crisis right now. I believe, personally, as a pastor, I believe the root is spiritual, and I would start working with churches to say, hey, we need the churches to partner with the government to make sure that we can care for people together. The government doesn't always do a great job of seeing people for who they are. I believe nonprofits and churches and charities can see people for who they are. And so there's a public-private partnership that I think we could really utilize. And one of the giftings that I have is just being in that pastoral role. I know how to communicate to churches to get them on board to take care of the hurting, the sick, the needy, the orphan, the widow. I mean, it's really the nonprofit world. They do a good job with that. And so as someone who has really valued what Suzanne's done, I hope to pick up where she's left off, but then to really try to bring that unity amongst the government and the nonprofit world and say, hey, collectively, this is all hands on deck. One can't do it without the other, and so we need to work together, because there's a lot of people hurting right now, and there's a lot of things that the government could be doing that it's not doing, and there's a lot of things that the nonprofit world could be doing that it's not doing, and I think we just got to get on the same page. So I hope to be that bridge that can bring the two together.
How do you view the Lieutenant Governor's role as President of the Senate?
Yeah, so the President of the Senate is an important, influential role. I think for too long, I think we've seen that as more of just, again, being a secretary over the Senate. I think you do make sure that you've got to lead the discussions. You've got to usher in debate or through Robert's Rules of Order, all of those types of things, which is important. But I do think there's a lot of influence that you can have behind closed doors. I think that's where the power of the president of the Senate, the lieutenant governor, I think that's where the power rests, is when you can have those conversations with senators to say, hey, let's talk about fixing this issue. Or I've been hearing out when I'm traveling the state, Hoosiers are wanting to see change here. Let's try to address this and let's help Hoosiers in this area. So I look forward to using, again, the influence of that role. Again, and you're not a legislator as the lieutenant governor, but you do have influence in legislation. I think for too long, as I'm out traveling the state, when I talk to legislators, they tend to say, oh, the lieutenant governor doesn't really have any influence over any legislation. I don't buy that. I think anybody can have influence over legislation. I mean, what do you do when you call your senator or your rep, just as a citizen, say, hey, I'm having an issue here, I need you to do something about it. I think we all have influence, and as lieutenant governor, I would use that office to help influence good legislation through, and maybe help influence to stop bad legislation that has the potential of getting through.
Would you involve yourself in the day-to-day operations of the Senate? Historically, that's been left more to the Senate President Pro Tem.
Yeah, I'm someone who likes to get my hands involved in those things. I really enjoy legislative agendas. The legislative season, I've worked with the Indiana Family Institute for a number of years now, and that's what they do. They advocate for good policy in the legislative season. So I like that. I hope to be somebody who, as lieutenant governor, is very active. Certainly working with the governor too. I mean, I'm not going to try to overstep or usurp the governor and his legislative agenda, but I will certainly run when I feel like there is a good policy that we're advocating for. I'll be a great champion of that, and so I look forward to doing that.
That leads me to another question. You mentioned earlier in this interview that you view lieutenant governor as potentially a check and balance against the governor. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so we have two voices of representation in the executive branch. We elect the governor and we elect the lieutenant governor. And I think we've given the lieutenant governor just over to the governor over the last 30 years, and we've said, it becomes a secretary for the governor. And I don't believe that's right. I think when COVID really exposed that to me, where we saw the executive branch do things that it should have never done. We saw, and again, this was under Republican leadership, and I'm an outspoken critic of Republicans when I need to be, not because I'm not a Republican. I love Republican principles, but oftentimes Republican leaders, what I'm seeing around the country, they don't follow Republican principles, and I'll call them on that. And I think, just as Scripture says, iron sharpens iron. When you have that check and balance, you're sharpening each other. I mean, what football coach would ever tell his players never to hit each other in practice? I mean, coaches tell the players to go at your teammates hard in practice. Why? Because we want to get stronger. We want to have that honest look of how strong are we really as a team, and where are our weak points. And when you start calling your teammates out in a healthy way, it makes them stronger. And what I've seen over at least the last 4 to 5 years is that the Republicans have not done a good job of calling each other out. Again, it's not in a way to burn the party to the ground. That's not what I'm advocating for. But I think we've really gotten lazy, we've gotten complacent, we've gotten soft when it comes to being leaders of the state. And it is a Republican supermajority state. And I think sometimes the danger in that is we get very complacent. And so if we're not holding each other accountable, then it's gonna go poorly. And I'm always somebody that says I don't want to be surrounded by yes men, nor do I want to be a yes man. I want people who are going to honestly say, hey, Micah, this is your blind spot. You need to recognize you're not strong here. This is an area of growth that you need to consider. And so I want to bring that to the world of government as well.
Why should the delegates choose you over Julie McGuire at the convention on June 15th?
Well, 2 reasons. One, because I will be an honest voice for the people. And while Mike Braun and I are good friends, I really value Mike as a friend. I think he's a good leader. You really want the people's voice to be heard in that second office. And then I'm also very qualified. Again, going back to my agriculture experience, lifelong agriculture experience. I'm also a business owner, small business owner, and then I'm a pastor. I have the moral fortitude to stand up when the political winds may be blowing one direction, but it's the right thing to do to stand and face those winds head on. I do that. I've done that. People all around the state have seen me do that over the last 4 years, whether I was writing religious exemptions for people so they wouldn't get fired from their jobs, kicked out of the military, kicked out of school when they didn't want to take a vaccine that they didn't necessarily trust. Like, I stood with them. I defended their liberties. I did more to defend the liberties of Hoosiers during the COVID pandemic than any one person in government did. And I'll put my record up to anybody in government. And I did that as a pastor. So imagine what I'll do as lieutenant governor. And then I'm someone who's going to tell you the truth, whether it's politically expedient or not. And I really, it doesn't bother me if people don't like what they're hearing, or if they're going to kick me out of office because I tell the truth. And I would gladly be kicked out of office for speaking truth. I'm always going to speak truth, and I believe that's what the people are hungry for. Someone who will just get up there and say, tell me the truth, and then let me decide what to do with that information. And that's what I'll do as lieutenant governor, is speak the truth always.
Micah Beckwith, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it.
That was Micah Beckwith. He's running for lieutenant governor at the Indiana Republican Party convention on June 15th. Remember, you can watch All Indiana Politics every Sunday morning at 9:30, only on Wish TV. I'm Garret Bergquist. Thanks for listening.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.